volunteer by emailing American Freedom Radio at ymail.com. Vaccines, psychotropic drugs, and also no rules, no taboo topics, no fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. And this show is brought to you by Subash Technosis. Go to subashtechnosis.com if you need any kind of website design, search engine optimization, content writing, data entry, all kinds, any kind of outsourcing your customer service, any kind of thing you want to outsource. Get a hold of Subash Technosis. On Facebook, you can find them at Subash Technosis LLC. And if you contact Subash, make sure you mention Ed Opperman. I've known Subash for 10 years, so that's how you get a good deal. Okay. We have with us today a returning guest. We have Joanna Hart, and she's over there in the UK. She's a private investigator herself and a journalist in the United Kingdom. There, do they still have the United Kingdom? I don't think they do. I think we got rid of that when Trump came in. He made them get rid of it. But what do you call it? She's over there in England, and she was a part of that whole UK hacking with the Murdoch News of the World, all kinds of fascinating stuff. Christine, are you there?
Yes, I am trying to stay awake. So it's quite late here.
I know, it's 1 a.m. over there, so I really appreciate you staying up. And I had a whole container of chocolate ice cream, so I'm all shot out of a cannon. Question number one. Is there still a United Kingdom, or has that been done away with because of Brexit?
No, I think it's still there. Yeah.
Okay.
I think.
Okay, well that's good. Okay, I hate to see that go. Okay, so Christine, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Christine Hart?
Yeah, I grew up in an orphanage, and I was adopted when I was 5 years old by a family who was very linked with the Vatican, and my aunt was a nun and the Daughters of St. Paul, and my mother's family was linked with the British Army, and I was adopted by them, and it didn't really work out, so I went back into care when I was 13, and I didn't do super well at school, but I got straight into doing private investigations work, and I worked for ex-MI6 officers in some of the London companies. And then I, from there, went into Fleet Street and became a journalist for the News of the World. Then after that, The Sun. I did a bit for the Daily Mail as well. So that was for the past 20 years. And after the phone hacking, though, everything went kaput. So, sadly.
Now, you wrote a book about being adopted, right? And searching for your parents?
Yeah, well, I didn't want to call it Searching for Daddy, because what happened when I was about 13, they said that my real father was a criminal, but turned out my mother, just because he was older, she was supposedly, well, she was 13, and he was older, and so she meant criminal, in the fact she was underage. But I thought that it might have been something really serious, and so I kind of put dates together and thought it might have been the Moors murderer, Ian Brady. And so I wrote to him and was corresponding with him, and next thing the press cottoned onto it and plastered me all over the front pages as being Ian Brady, the Moors murderer's daughter, and it wasn't true, obviously. And so I wrote a book about that, and I visited him twice. And the book really was about the visits. It was compared to Silence of the Lambs by the News of the World. Just the meeting I had with him was alone. The second one was alone. So they called that Searching for Daddy, or I didn't like it. The second one, In for the Kill, was about meeting the American serial killer, Kenneth Bianchi, which I think was more interesting, really, than meeting Brady. Bianchi was more interesting. So I had these two serial killers that I met, and I put them all in this book, and I added in, I don't know why I added in, about when I worked for the News of the World and this love affair I had with one of the leaders of the real IRA. And after I wrote it, an American woman called Anna came forward to me on Facebook and said that she thought I had been a victim of monarch mind control. And I remember at the time thinking, that's I Googled it, and I thought, that sounds like madness. But there was a lot of it on Google, and I would have really sort of forgotten all about it. But then she put me in a little group of people that had this monarch mind control stuff done to them. And I was talking to one of them, and I was talking about therapy, and I said, well, I've had therapy for ages because I had sexual abuse by my adopted father, and he had brought me back to the orphanage, which was a Vatican-run orphanage, Crusader Rescue. And I remember something to do with sexual abuse there, but I'd always try to reach it because my sexuality seemed very cut off, and it seemed to be just activated in certain circumstances. And it felt like I didn't have much control over my taste in men, so to speak. And so I'd always try to dig around and have therapy. And I told her that there seemed to be a screen there, like a block. And she said what was on the screen. And nobody had asked me that before. And I said, it is like a cartoon. And she said, what cartoon? I said, Donald Duck. And she said, it's Donald Duck programming. So I Googled it, and to my horror, there was such a thing. And then I began to look back at my life and see that it rather looked like that I'd been a bit of a puppet, certainly as regards to kicking off the phone hacking. I had introduced one of my ex-MI6 buddies to the News of the World, and it had been him that had brought in the phone hacking. And it's even though the guy they caught was Glenn Mulcair, which was John Boyle's office boy, it was Boyle who works for these MI6 companies who had brought him in, but Boyle didn't really get mentioned. But Boyle actually had been a lover of mine in the past, and so had the news editor. And it was like that again was the taste that I didn't have. I wasn't really attracted to these men, but I kind of mixed with them and brought them together, and that really crashed the British press. It took away the power of the press, and other things like, the affair with the leader of the real IRA. It was in a no-go area where the British Army can't go, and I'd always wondered why I did that. So it was kind of like I had a kind of sexuality that was a bit like this kind of genie in a bottle kind of thing, which was triggered just to do that. And once I kind of started going down the rabbit hole and looking into the Monarch programming, it made a lot of sense of my life, Yeah,
you suspect that you're being used or were being used as a tool.
Definitely.
Bred into this. Because you got to remember, you and me had a long talk off the air, about 2 hours before you ever went public on any of this. Now, one thing I want to ask you about is, remember we had talked one time and you were upset because they were making a movie or a book about the UK the phone hacking stuff, and did that ever come about? What happened with that?
Yeah, well, Nick Davies from The Guardian, I'd helped him a lot with his book. And at the time, I had written a book which is now, it's on Amazon, really, the Christine Hart story. You can still get hold of that. And I've written another book called The MK Ultra 7, which is about a group of people that have had that, and also my own story mostly. But I had helped Nick a lot, and I wanted him to mention that in his book. And he said, "Oh, of course I'm going to mention you." But he did mention me a lot, but he called me a code name, which made me quite cross. And Hugh Grant had a company. Well, he's got not a company; it's an organisation called Hacked Off, and they were gonna George Clooney was
Right.
gonna make a movie of Nick Davies's book, but then afterwards Hugh Grant came to me about my book, which is the Christine Joanna Hart story, and he was quite interested in that, and an MP who works for him called Evan Harris. I'm not actually supposed to talk about them because I've signed a contract with them to go through different things that I had done in the past for the press, and to come forward and to, talk about them in court. And so they recently bought a lot of my remittance advices, especially when I worked for the Daily Mail. Like, a remittance advice is like, when you work for them, they pay you. And I'd had quite a few of these going back over the 90s, and they've just purchased quite a lot of them from me, about 50, and they were supposed to purchase another 50, but I was burgled. And when I was burgled, they went. So it's all quite odd what's going on at the moment, actually.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, these remittance advices, again, explain to me what that is.
Well, they're like, say, because I used to be a private investigator, and I said, sometimes when I worked for the Daily Mail, they would maybe ask me to spy at the Priory, and stuff like that. And so Hacked Off rather thought that they would bring down the Daily Mail if they had my remittance advices. So I would go and say spy and look round the Priory and say, "Oh, Liz Hurley's there," get paid for it by the Mail, but there'd be no proof of that unless the Mail paid me, and then they would give me a remittance advice to say, "Liz Hurley, £1,000, thank you very much." And I had loads of these remittance advices from the Mail, and so Hacked Off and Hugh Grant bought them off me so they could sue the Mail. And they paid me £10,000 for some of them, and I had a load left. But I was burgled for the rest of them. It's like all a bit odd, which is going on at the moment. They arranged for me to live in a house which is a little bit, isolated in the countryside. And as soon as I moved in, I was burgled I'm not pointing any fingers at them, but it's all a bit odd that as soon as I got there, I was burgled. But I'm not saying that they did it. Yeah. It could well have been the Mail that arranged, because it's all a very shady.
I follow you. And the remittance advice is sort of like a canceled check or a proof of payment. Proof that they were paying.
Yes, proof of payment.
Interesting. So they didn't want to see the actual reports you were writing. They wanted to just see the proof that you were getting paid for these reports.
Yeah, then supposedly they were going to go through old copies of, say, the Mail, for instance, and look at, look, you've done this, and call me as a witness, and then take down the newspaper, by saying, look, you hired spies here, and doing this.
Now, you mentioned you had worked for some PIs that were former MI6.
Yeah.
Have you looked over this report by this gentleman, Christopher Steele, from the Orbis Business Intelligence Company?
No.
The guy who wrote the report about Donald Trump, you didn't read that?
I haven't heard of that, no.
Oh, my God. I should have sent this to you. Okay, but have you heard that it's a big thing over here in the U.S.? This guy, a British investigator, he's a private investigator now. The name of his company is Orbis Business Intelligence. He's former MI6, very well respected, and he was hired to do opposition research by the Republican Party here against Donald Trump because of his sources in Russia. So you haven't heard about any of that, huh?
Oh, is that the one where the guy came forward saying Trump was the was watching the girls? That one.
Yes, the golden showers and all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, right. I followed that to a certain point. Was that not a serving officer? Oh, he was ex-MI6. Oh, okay. And they said, well, once you're ex, you never leave. That's true.
Okay, and so then so this guy here now. Have you ever heard of this Orbis Business Intelligence?
I hadn't heard of that, no.
Yeah, me neither.
So where's Orbis based? I haven't heard of them before.
Okay, I can look it up real quick here. It's in the UK someplace. I know that.
London.
Co-founder. Oh, they're talking about the outside his office here, so maybe we'll get something there. I'll glance at it as we're talking. But you never heard of that name, Christopher Steele. No, what would you make of that, though? Because a lot of people here are saying, hey, well, he just made up the report. And, it's just garbage. Do you think it's possible for someone at this level of being an investigator over there in the UK and being hired by the Republican Party to just make up phony documents?
No, I don't. I don't think it's worth their while to make them up, because you've got their reputation and there's a lot of money at stake. So I don't think it would be made up. No, I haven't heard of Orbis. Doesn't mean to say they don't exist, because I've been, head in the sand for the past since 2008. So they might have been new on the block. The big ones are Knightsbridge Company Services. That's Stuart Paul Robb. You've got Hacklight. You've got Company X, which is CIEX Limited. That's Michael Oatley. So they're the big boys. Then you've got the guys that do the kidnap that were in that. Well, they were written about in that film with Meg Ryan. Gosh, I can't remember their name.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, Proof of Life.
Yeah, in Proof of Life, and I can't remember their name, but they were kind of played out in that film. So, and then you got Sandline and that kind of thing. So I haven't heard of Steele, but obviously, maybe he's kept a low profile,
Yeah. Usually it's the ones you haven't heard of that you got to be worried about. They show a picture.
Yeah, of course.
His office is in London, and they're showing a picture of the outside of his office here, and it looks very impressive. And then his home is in Surrey.
Oh, I live in Surrey. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe you're involved. Okay, we have to look into this. Okay.
No, I haven't heard of him. So, but it is odd because you do get the broadsheets do exposés on the bigger boys. Hacklight, I suppose, is the biggest. The most famous. So there are smaller guys dotted around. Maybe he's one of the smaller ones. I'm going to have to check into that because I didn't really follow it so much.
Yeah, he's the founder of the company, and it seems like he only has one partner, and then the rest are like employees as a partner at this company. But he has really extensive connections in Russia with the highest levels over there, and really high oligarchs and big billionaires and stuff like that. He seems to have a lot of first-hand connections. So I read all the reports, and I was pretty impressed.
Yeah, interesting. Who's the partner? What's his name?
I don't have that handy. I thought you'd be more familiar. I just assumed. We should.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. We should consider that for another segment in the future.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. I'll look into it. It does sound interesting. I sort of did see it, but I don't always follow up on everything. Every
Sure.
news story that I see, I don't always listen into it. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it was a big deal over here. So now, what are you guys making about Trump over there? Is it making you guys nervous or?
Yeah, no, not really nervous. It's interesting, isn't it? Because as you were saying, there's only Hillary and Trump, and there wasn't really much of a choice, really, was there? So I think the English really are quite pleased that it's not Hillary.
I hear you with that. Yeah, it's just he just seems so unstable. And now since the
I know it's strange. I was watching all the riots just now. I was looking on YouTube and just seeing all the riots. Was that extensive over there?
Well, the marches today are extremely extensive. It seems to be about 1.5 million people just in D.C. and then in every city all over the country. There's huge marches here in Vegas today. So it's like a women's march. And yesterday there was some kind of more violent type protests, some local anarchists. Probably, but 5,000-10,000 people yesterday protesting. And very who knows what's going to happen. Let's take a okay. Since the last time we talked, you've started hosting a radio show as well, right?
Yes, Revolution Radio. It's Douglas Dietrich. Interestingly, when I was talking to this woman, Anna, she started talking about this Colonel Michael Aquino chap, and I think it was just the writer in me that the name, I thought, it just immediately rang bells with me. And she told me and another girl in the group to try and get in contact with different parts of myself and to keep a diary for each part. And so I was doing that, and I had a part come up in my mind's eye that was kind of looked like almost like it was covered in ice. When I saw it in my mind's eye, it seemed like just like really frozen kind of thing, a bit like in that the Matrix where Neo is kind of white. There's a white glowing kind of version of him, and that part of me, it was just really, really cold, and I couldn't get in touch with that part of me. And a girl in the group said, well, buy that part of you a really special notebook. So I bought a really beautiful purple fabric book with a fountain pen. And as soon as I heard that name, I opened it and wrote Project Aquino. And I was quite interested, because I'd written that, I was quite interested to track him down and to find out whether he'd been to London and around the time when I was in the orphanage, and had he had any connection with the Vatican in London and this monarch mind control stuff, and had he brought it there. So I was researching on the net, and he actually had been to London around that time, well, certainly in that decade. And I then found his email. So I emailed him and said, oh, dear Colonel Aquino, I'm a British journalist. I'm researching monarch mind control, and, I'd like to talk to you about it. And I didn't get any kind of response. And then a friend of mine was saying, oh, you shouldn't rattle the cage of someone like that because, they're linked with the occult and a bit scary. And I remember thinking, shut your mouth. I don't believe in all that shit. I didn't really believe in mind control either. I was just kind of going along with it, with the thing just for the ride, And it was one night when I was just about to go to sleep, and I'd sent this email off, and I saw this like white rabbit in my mind's eye, and it was really, really quite intense, really strong in my mind's eye, and I couldn't like wash it out and go to sleep. So I got up and I was sort of slapped my face with water, went back, laid down, and this rabbit again was still in my head, and I could see it in just extreme detail. And I thought, this is making me feel sick. What the hell is going on? And then all of a sudden, the rabbit kind of shot off really, really fast. And that part of me, the ice part, kind of came out of me and shot after it. And it sort of kind of seemed to travel over ground. I was out of my body, and it traveled really fast over ground, and then seemed to sort of come to a halt and then go down really, 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 vertically. And it was almost as if I fell as it did, and it was like going down like a rabbit hole. I didn't think at the time that it was like a rabbit hole, but obviously it was a really thin hole. And then I landed bang at the bottom, and then I was face to face with this Aquino guy, and he said to me, "What do you want?" And I thought, this must be his way of doing an interview. So I said, I just, want to find out about this monarch mind control stuff. And he said, no, what do you want? And he made me follow him down a kind of long corridor. We came out and we saw I saw the universe in front of me. And he produced a kind of what I've researched now. It's a shape within a shape, tetrahedron or something like that it's called. And he said if you go into the tetrahedron, you can travel through time wherever you want to travel, and you can go into anyone's consciousness and become them, like Henry VIII or whoever you want to be. And I said at the time, I don't think that's right. What about God? And he said, well, no, the old gods have gone. We are the gods. We are the ones. We have to grab this because we're in charge. And I said, that's wrong. What about Jesus? And as soon as I said Jesus, I kind of just slapped back on the bed and kind of woke up back on the bed. And I told my friend who had warned me I just knew this guy from Facebook. So I immediately private message on Facebook and I said, oh my God, you were right. I just had this like really weird experience. And he said, well, you must stay away from the guy. And I thought, well, no way. This is interesting. So just to test it, I wrote another email and I said, I called him Michael the second time. I said, you came to me as a rabbit and we had a conversation and I sent it off and he sent me back really straight away a link to that Jefferson Airplane White Rabbit song. They use that in actually Alice in Wonderland, the second one, that sort of really like pot smoking song about gosh, I can't remember what it is, but it's called The White Rabbit.
Yeah, and everyone's familiar with that song.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
And he sent a link to it and he goes, oh, I must get Grace to update the lyrics to include our little encounter. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. I'd never had that experience of having, that lucid experience and then talking to someone about it. And I thought it was really freaky. And I tracked down, I was Googling Aquino to try and find out what else was going on with this strange guy. And I found Douglas Dietrich. And Douglas had me on his show and he was talking. He obviously believes a lot in monarch mind control. And I said, I don't really understand this stuff. And he said, it's carried out by people off world. And I remember at the time thinking that guy must be off his face. What does he mean off world? But that was about, I think, 2 years ago. And obviously now I've researched and met people, and I correspond with James Casbolt. I met Max Spears, the late Max Spears, and got to know him. And now I understand it's the astral, and I've become more awake myself as well and more active on the astral. And as I got more and more active, Aquino did come back to me, and he held me in what's known as astral detention, which what happens, and Lorien Fenton talked to me about it, it's quite horrible actually. It's something that the grey aliens do. Now, we don't really know whether the greys are linked with the military or they are kind of linked with these Satanists, but the greys tend to do it where they abduct, which is when you're just about to go to sleep, they kind of pull you out of your body and they can pull you through your feet and they take you somewhere where it's a weird feeling because you feel like you're going to sleep, but actually you're not. Somebody like hijacks your mind. So it's horrible actually. And for a whole week, Aquino did that to me. He pulled me out by my feet. There were greys present on one of the times when it happened. And he put me into like an astral detention where he questioned me, who I was working for, what I intended to do. And interestingly, he said I would become in contact with the American people. And I said, well, what do you mean? And interestingly, Douglas Dietrich gave me my own radio show, or he, engineered it. And it's quite interesting because Aquino did seem to know that. And he said, what were you doing that for? And he was kicking me and tasering me, and it was horrible. And every night I had that. And eventually I had to go to a local spiritualist place. And I was so upset because I hadn't slept for for a week because he just pulled me out of my body. So I just went in there, and I remember I was really crying, and I said, I've come in contact with somebody, and they're really quite powerful in the occult world, and they're not letting me sleep, basically. And Laurie and Fenton said to me that some people, when they get, like, I think there was an X-Files about it, where a guy sort of got abducted again and again and again, and they wouldn't let him, they came for him constantly. And I remember watching that and thinking, God, why isn't he enjoying it? And, it must be great. But now I've experienced it. And these abductions by these greys, they're not physical, they're like astral. And it is horrific because you have no control. You have no control about what they do to your mind, what they're doing to you.
Hold on a second. Let me ask you a question.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Because you said that when you were confronted by Aquino, that you pled the name of Jesus. You called on the name of Jesus, and he fled. So then why wouldn't you go to a Christian church or something? Rather, you went to an occult spiritualist who was also involved in that same kind of ritual kind of stuff, rather than going to what you knew worked.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I didn't really put two and two together with the name of Jesus working. I thought that he rather just maybe pushed me away and I landed back. I didn't see it as being some kind of antidote, but actually, interestingly,
it says in the Bible that if you call on the name of Jesus, that these demons must flee.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, I had Joseph Jordan on the show, who works for the UFO research, and he told me about when these greys, the aliens, they do the abductions, that if they're always astral, and I didn't know that. I thought they were physical. I thought people were abducted physically, but they're not. It's an astral thing. And he said that when they call out Jesus, that the abduction stops. But when I went to, because I think I tried to ring the church, but, as a church I know, I'm Catholic, as a church I know, I don't think I could get through. And I tried then to ring this little local place that I know. I can't remember what it's called now, but just for advice. And she was nice over the phone. So I went down there, it's not that far away. And she was a nice woman, and I just went through the door, and I was just crying, and I just said, I'm really, really scared. But she actually helped me. She said to sleep with, I've got some beside me, actually. I'm laying on the bed, I've got it beside me, black obsidian, and to hold black obsidian in my left hand, and to not have any computers near the bed, and just a few other things. And I remember thinking it wouldn't work, and I was just so scared. And I just went to sleep, and I had one night of sleeping. I just went straight to sleep, and I just thought, okay, well, if I can have one night respite from it, then I can face it again. And then it went away. I was just so relieved,
Well, let me ask you a question now. Okay, when we first had this discussion, and we talked about all this stuff about your astral visits with Aquino and stuff like that. At the time, you weren't convinced. You were questioning this. You didn't know if it was reality or perhaps imagination or something like that. So now, when we talk again 2 years later, you're convinced all this is real.
Yes, I am now, because I've just mixed with more and more people, and I've got to know more and more about the occult, and I'm sort of more powerful in it myself. So I believe it because I've had more experiences. For instance, I made contact with Miles Johnson from Basis. He put James Casbolt out there, and James Casbolt has done a lot of stuff. And it just
let's start with Casbolt. Let's start with Casbolt, because I've met Casbolt, and I've talked to him.
Right.
Now, have you met him in person?
No, I haven't. I just write to him in prison, that's all. But I might be going to see him.
Oh, he's in prison now?
Yeah. He got 12 years.
What's he in prison for?
Well, it's interesting. He did a Basis lecture, because Miles Johnson gets together all these people that have been monarch mind controlled. And so Casbolt was doing a lecture at Miles Johnson's Basis thing in Devon. And he started saying how he had assassinated people in the astral and stuff, and then Miles went to the cops and reported him. So the cops then were watching him, and next thing I think he was abusing his ex online.
Yeah.
And next thing he was up in court. He got 12 years just for an abusive email or abusive Facebook post. It was weird. 12 years is like
well,
what?
no, he was doing some pretty wild stuff. He was posting naked pictures of his wife. He posted them on my Facebook page.
Did he?
Oh, this guy's crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you believe he went to Mars?
I don't know if I believe anybody went to Mars. I know there's that Laura Eisenhower who's saying that. I don't know if I go for that. I mean, I had a really weird experience. There was a guy called Alex, and he came to me on my Facebook page, and he said to me, I'll take a trip. Do you want to take a trip to destroy Alice? I said, oh, what do you mean? And he was talking about the CERN machine in Sweden. I think it's in Sweden. They've got a part of it called Alice, and there was a group of them going off in the astral. And I thought, well, he can't come and just pull me out of my body. And he said, oh, make it, what time is best for you? And I was just about to go to sleep. So I said, oh, 12:30. And this guy came and just pulled me out of my body, and we went off, and he took me down my timeline. And it's so now, having had more experiences of people that are up to their balls in the occult. I mean, I interviewed that E.A. Coetting guy. He's a black magician, but you kind of get, once you kind of start walking down that corridor, it kind of gets realer and realer, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, it sounds like it could be full-blown demon possession at this point, and total distortion and delusion. You can't see that possibility?
Oh, what? What do you mean, me?
Yeah, as you're going further. Okay, let's start with Caswell. Okay, who also used the name Prince, right? I think it was Michael Prince.
Yeah,
or something.
Michael Prince.
James Caswell, Michael Prince, who claimed he went to Mars. Now I could testify in court my experience with this guy, that he blatantly lied to me about a shootout that he had in Mexico with the federales. Okay, all right, and they blatantly lied to me because I know the people who he claimed he was with. Okay, so I don't give that guy even the slightest bit of credibility, and then even
I'm not saying. I mean,
yeah,
I've been writing to, but not long letters. Just questioning him about stuff he said about Odin and the Nazi. There's a Nazi connection to the mind control people because I've.
But the thing is,
he talked about the Nazis, and so I just wanted to.
Yeah,
sorry,
all that stuff that Caswell talks about is all stuff that he just got from YouTube and reading.
Really?
Of course. Even if you watch, see, because I met him when he first came out at that first Super Soldier thing here in Vegas. It was right by my house. Okay, and I was presenting there too, and so that's when he was interviewed by Kerry Cassidy. And even if you watch that interview, she asked him, have you ever met any aliens, any 15-foot aliens? And he goes, yes. He goes, yes, I have. And then he starts talking about it, and he says, oh, I saw it on YouTube. So first he says, yeah, he saw them. And then he admits he saw it on YouTube. So the guy, I don't give that guy any credit. Now, what about, let's get to Spears. Because I met him too. Okay. Yeah, now, what do you think Spears went to Mars?
I don't know. I'm not sure I believe that Mars thing.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these guys like Max and James and Miles as well, I don't believe everything they say. I mean, I like Miles Johnson. I speak to him nearly every day, and I like him. Sometimes he talks things and I think, oh, yeah, whatever. So I take things with a pinch of salt. I mean, I don't, so you can, sometimes I think people are lying, but then I think it's, when I came across Lorien Fenton, when this started happening to me, and I think I went on her show, and she goes, Christine, And I'm like, yes. And she goes, never lie about anything. She goes, because in this sphere that you're coming into, I didn't know there was a big thing going, it's mostly over in America, apart from Miles, about this super soldier, the monarch thing, and people having experiences. And she said, always stick to the truth the whole time. And so I followed that advice, and I've always stuck to the truth. And no matter, it might be a bit boring. My story's not as, sexy and exciting as going off to Mars, but I think if you keep it real, sometimes I think like James Casbolt, if they get like press attention, like Miles was always filming James Casbolt, I think sometimes they feel they have to sing for their supper. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. And I can tell you, too, we haven't been at those super soldier things, There's one woman on there who, her husband's in prison, Captain Clark or something like that, claims he was a secret space program. Are you familiar with those two characters? Everyone knows they're making that up.
No, I haven't heard of them. What's their names? We can't mention.
I think it's Clark or something like that. And his wife does these seminars, and her husband's in Vacaville prison. And he was involved. And you got to look it up because his story, it was in the papers. This guy murdered somebody. He's in prison for murder. And he's alleging that he was in part of some secret space program, which is all complete nonsense. And everyone, and the thing
has
is,
Kerry Cassidy interviewed?
Yes, she's all into. She goes down and visits him in prison.
Yeah. Okay. I haven't listened to his stuff yet. Is it good? No.
Listen, I used to believe all that stuff Kerry put out too. I used to believe. I thought all that stuff was true until I found out I could testify in court. Okay, that it's crap.
Right.
Okay, I got emails with me and Kerry Cassidy. Where she knows people confessed to me that they were hoaxing, and she went and perpetuated the hoax right afterward. I'll send it to you. Oh yeah. Now Max Spears, what do you make of him?
I quite liked him actually. He came on my show quite a lot. He was okay. I did think he used to sort of embroider and. Some stuff I was rolling my eyes and some stuff I thought, where the hell did he get that? People adored him, though. I mean, they really adored him.
He was a handsome guy. Okay.
He was sweet, and he was very sweet. I mean, a lot of the times he was, I had a troll that was getting on my nerves, and he was like teaching me how to sort of, return instead of being angry, sort of return, hate with love. And he did touch my heart. I was really upset when he died. He was a very, really in touch with his heart center, I mean, I really liked that about him. I'm not really sure about what he taught. I mean, I didn't really get a lot of it, but I do think he was a very heart-centered man, a very unusual man.
And do you think that anything that he was saying at these seminars had any, could he back up anything he said about his history and his background? Because to me, I met the guy and there was nothing there. And he even, he wanted to become a private investigator,
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he was trying, when he found out I was a PI, he was all excited, And, I tried to pin him down on what his background was, even where he lived. He couldn't even tell me where he lived. That was up in the air, Now, and we pretty, he looked away from me for the rest of the weekend because I saw through him. You know what I'm saying?
Was that in Vegas?
Yeah, at the first one where all these guys, came out. They became much more polished later on,
So do you believe in all the monarch mind control, or do you think it's all nonsense?
Well, we know MK Ultra is real. We know that stuff is real for a fact. But a lot of these characters who come out with these crazy stories, going to Mars, and it would be my impression, I would think that I don't think Max was murdered.
Really?
Oh, no. And I don't think his middle name was Herbert Walker, like he claimed. Have you talked to his mother?
Yes, she came on my show. I like Vanessa, actually. She's, she's nice.
Okay, because he says he's related to the Bushes and his middle name is Herbert Walker. That could be verified with the mother. Has anybody asked her?
No, because I haven't heard him say that.
Yeah, no one. Yeah, well, he says it on the Kerry Cassidy video.
Oh, really? Sorry, I haven't listened to all his stuff.
Yeah. And you know, and listen, the guy had personal, you know, even his mother admitted they had a drug problem, you know, him and his girlfriend, you know.
I've met Sarah. She's interesting.
Sarah thinks she's related to Jesus.
Does she? I saw her on Jim Mars. She did a Jim Mars interview.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Well, Sarah, okay, all these people, you know, they all added me on Facebook after this first seminar. Because I got to tell you something. When we did this seminar, okay, and I was the last one up there. And when I did my presentation, these guys were sitting there with their mouths hanging open. Okay? Because I think I was the only one that was telling the truth out of the whole. Well, maybe Doug has some stuff to say. But, okay, but the thing is, too, is then they all added me on Facebook. Sarah, you know, contacts me in the middle of the night telling me she's related to Jesus. She tracked her lineage back to Mary Magdalene. Well, you know, kind of crazy stuff. And then Max and Casbolt were tagging me in every kind of post they made constantly, trying to draw me, to use me as to gain credibility for them, you know? And they were doing this to other people, too. So anyway, the guy's passed. God bless him, you know? But I can't give any credibility to any of those people, to tell you the truth. None of them. You know?
So what do you think about my story? You said that you thought I was demon possessed.
I think because from going back to our first conversation, you know, when you were questioning this, and now to hear that all you've done is go further and further and further into the occult and seeking advice from occultists, and it concerns me, you know, that because it is deception. You know, this kind of, it's deception, and I do want to have you jumping through hoops, you know? Like, okay, you can't sleep. Okay, we're going to give you this little black powder, and it's going to help you sleep. So you
No, it's black obsidian.
Whatever it is.
No, it's a rock.
Yeah.
It's a crystal. Oh, they're bloody good, actually.
Okay, well, great. They give you a rock. You know, this rock's going to make you better. And then the rock's not working anymore. Now I need something else. What do I need? You know, you're getting drawn into it more and more.
She was very good. She didn't want to sell me.
I know.
It was only £1 or something. I've gone and got myself a pretty more expensive one. But no, it was only £1. It works. It's like coal. You know, I think really you have to believe that you can get rid of people like that. I think the power is in just kind of knowing, just kind of getting your will back, that you can sort of, you know, I don't know how it works. I'm just glad it did work, actually.
Yeah, I hear you with that. Okay. Now, is that like the total focus of your show now, is all this kind of super soldier stuff and this kind of occult kind of thing?
Well, yeah, I had that Coetan guy on. He's quite interesting. He talks to demons and summons them up and that kind of stuff. I don't know where I'm going with the show, because I think I've checked into the Monarch stuff, and I think there are occultists and there are black magicians out there, and they're, you know, in the Vatican and in the Jesuits and probably controlling our world. But I think you can, you know, I mean, what can you do with that? Once you know, you know.
Yeah, I do know what you mean. Now, what about Pizzagate? Have you been looking into this Pizzagate stuff?
No, I haven't, because any people have asked me to, but any I don't like looking at sexual abuse. It just triggers memories of mine. I haven't got it all out, and it's just too much, you know.
No, I do know. Since I started looking into this stuff, I have some PTSD. I could tell you for a fact. I'm coming out of it now, but when I first the first weekend when I dived into that stuff, it was just horrific, you know. But it just there is a whole occult theme behind these characters too, with this Pizzagate stuff. Yeah.
Well, it goes quite high, doesn't it, in society, and they are using that, and then you start to think to yourself, well, if they're using that and they're using it on us, like, I suppose mind control, if that was done to me, I don't know if it was or not, but, you know, I've had that stuff done to me, and then you think, well, shall I get proficient with like maybe, you know, white magic and sort of, you know, because you can kind of protect yourself by, doing things like throwing up mirrors, or if you think you've had a curse put on you, you can use the herb rue and kind of cover yourself in that. I do take flower essences, and I make flower essences, and you can use that on yourself. That's a form of magic as well. And so I've walked a certain way down that path of thinking that it's probably a good idea that we all get proficient in the occult, actually. And I, being brought up a Catholic, it's kind of weird to come up with that conclusion, but I do think I do have that conclusion.
Well, have you ever spoken to like a Protestant or a Pentecostal or other Christian denominations who believe in the gifts of the Spirit, who believe in healing and prophecy and tongues, interpretation of tongues, and those kind of gifts and the fruits of the Spirit that can overcome all this kind of evil stuff that you don't have to dabble in and use, all kind of magic and witchcraft and stuff like that. You can just kind of, have you looked into anything like that?
But isn't that you just describing something that is what's healing? That's the same type of thing, isn't it?
Well, oh boy. If you look in the Bible, it says that any kind of this kind of sorcery or divination or witchcraft is evil. It's from the devil.
Yeah, but it would say that, right? It would say that.
Right, but why would it say that? Of course, because it's true. Why,
yeah, because no. Okay, it was tampered with. The Bible was tampered with. I can't remember which. I can't remember who it was, but it was tampered with at a certain point. So, of course, if they're all going to control us using black magic, of course they're going to tell us not to find out about it because it works.
I could see that theory, but again, what it describes is that all of their black magic is a counterfeit of and a deception. But we can have access to that kind of spiritual power through the blood of Jesus Christ, through the Son of God who was sacrificed and took our sins, and we have life everlasting. See, and that's what they're trying to steal from us, with all this kind of witchcraft and stuff. Would be a longer conversation for another day, you know what I mean, for us to have. But I got to tell you, without that kind of faith, I think I would be driven. I would be dead by now, I'm sure. I'd be in prison now, just kind of like Casbolt wound up in prison, and all kinds of problems like that. I've had miracles in my life. We just had a guy on the other day that had miracles in his life. It concerns me that you're getting further and further into this kind of what I see as a deception, and really dangerous stuff.
Why is it deception? I don't understand.
See, because the devil wants you to do all this kind of witchcraft and sorcery and divination and black magic to steal your soul, okay? And you could have life and life everlasting by believing in Jesus Christ, and receiving that in your heart, and forgiveness of your sins and all that kind of stuff, rebirth.
Yeah, no, I do. But what's wrong with like throwing up mirrors and that kind of stuff?
I'm not sure what throwing up mirrors is specifically, but just without that covering, I would be really, really concerned about being involved in all these occultists and all this black magic without that kind of covering and that kind of protection. Otherwise, you're just open to deception. In my experience. And we could talk off the air,
Yeah, that's okay. What is deception? What do you mean by deception?
Well, it seems a pattern to me with these black magicians and these occultists is they want you running around in circles. They want you nervous. They want you constantly, that you can't sleep and stuff like that. And then they're going to give you a little bit of a cure. The deception is to get you further and further involved in the occult. And ultimately, where you can't get any kind of satisfaction unless you're doing blood sacrifice for them and stuff. Ultimately, it can start off slow and little, and that's how they suck you in.
But I'm not involved with any occultists.
Well, okay. You mentioned a whole bunch of them here as we're talking.
I knew, but I had them on the show.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and okay, but it seems like to be a theme of your show, then, doesn't it?
It is. It has been for a bit, yeah. I'm coming out of that because you can only do so much. It gets dull after a while.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I try not to do too many of the same thing over and over. Try and mix it up. Like every now
Yeah, I
and
don't
then.
know. Personally, I don't know where my show is going. I have had thoughts of dumping it because, I mean, you can cover news, but then it's going out in America. So that's American news. It's not English news.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what am I interested in? I can't actually think what I am interested in at the moment. So I've kind of reached a point where I don't really know what to do shows about,
Well, what was your last show about?
I had a guy on talking about Islam, and he went on. He was a little bit anti-Muslim, which I wasn't over keen on, really.
How do you find your guests?
Well, I through recommendations, people say, "Oh, have such and such on." Who did I want on? I wanted Joseph Farrell, I think, who'd written about the Anna Nuke. I can't say that right, Anna Nuke. I find that interesting. I like some of Mark Passio's stuff about the Anna Nuke and coming here and, messing with human beings. I think that's interesting. It's an interesting theory.
Boy, that went fast. Okay, we got Christine Joanna Hart. We'll be right back after these messages.
Okay.
Sorry. Of all websites and personal ads, suspect that your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend may be cheating online, go to emailrevealer.com. On our online infidelity investigation. You give us their email address, and we could trace it back to online personal ads, dating sites, and social networks. We can even expand the investigation and find them cheating on escort service sites or even porn sites if they're registered to porn sites and swinger sites. So check out emailrevealer.com if you suspect your spouse is cheating, and check out our online infidelity investigation. William Ramsey is a producer here at the Opperman Report, and he's just come out with a new book, Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. Now, he just sent me a copy of this book. Oh boy, it's about 2 inches thick, and there's a chapter on just about everybody in this book that you could imagine. The Beatles and Jack Parsons, everybody's in here. It's incredible. And I definitely recommend this book. There's a bunch of pictures in here, too, of all these people and different chapters and information. Anselm LaVey and people I've never heard of, too. There's a whole bunch in here. JFC Fuller. I don't know who he is. But it's great stuff by our producer here, William Ramsey. So check out Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. You can find it on Amazon.com, or you could find it in the Opperman Report .com bookstore. We have an urgent bulletin. It seems that the group Strawman is still on the loose. It has been confirmed that Strawman are Canadian, okay, and that authorities are asking people to stay indoors, lock your doors and windows until this group can be dealt with. You could find more information about this group of Canadians, at strawmanmusic.com. You can have your ad played here. Okay, we're looking for sponsors. Okay, in fact, we desperately need sponsors right now to take this show to the next level. So you can have your ad played here, read live, like I'm doing now, so artfully. Or we can even work up a little jingle for you with some music and stuff like that and play it here. You have no idea how inexpensive it would be to have your ad played on the Opperman Report on 7 stations live Friday night and another 7 stations live on Saturday night, plus replayed every day of the week on different stations, and then archived on YouTube, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and all different kinds of podcasts, Pod This and Podbean, all different kinds of places who archive the show for us. And on those archives, your ad would play indefinitely, forever. You also get a little banner on OppermanReport.com. You get a mention on the air, you get a little interview on the air, and all kinds of fun stuff if you sponsor Opperman Report. We have an opportunity to get this show on a major AM/FM station in California. We've been approved. So if you want to sponsor us into that, so incredibly inexpensive that your ad would be heard by a the range covers 5 million people in population where your ad would be broadcast, and all these other stations would be thrown in for free. So really affordable prices to sponsor OppermanReport.com. Get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You can get a copy of that book at emailrevealer.com, or you can get a copy of that book now. It's back up on Amazon.com. How to Become a Successful Private Investigator by Ed Opperman. And this book has been updated a little bit from the previous book that we had that was available to our wonderful listeners.
Interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. This portion of the show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com, get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. And also, too, we got all kinds of different services. If you think your spouse is cheating on you, you give us their email address. We could trace it back to online dating websites, catch them cheating online. We are here with Christine Joanna Hart, Christine J. Hart. She has a show on Revolution Radio once a week. Christine, when's your show on?
Thursdays at 7 o'clock.
7 p.m. Okay, and Christine, I really got to apologize to you. I don't mean to accuse you of being demon-possessed.
Yeah, yeah, you did. I was talking about you on Facebook with my friends.
No, I don't mean to offend you, okay?
No, it's okay. But, you know, it's different just because you're interested in the occult, okay, which means what is hidden. It doesn't mean that you're going to go around doing what those pathetic Luciferians do and sacrificing or, you know, shit like that. I mean, Satanists worship Satan. Someone who's just exploring in the unseen is different. It's looking. And I know you will probably say, well, don't look. Well, I disagree. I disagree with that. I mean, for instance, the other night, I was quite astrally lucid, and I came across, it was a male figure who had really dark eyes, you know, black eyes, like they say, the black-eyed children. He had black eyes, and he was pouring black liquid into a pool, and he went in it swimming, and he urged me to come in and swim with him, which I wouldn't. Then he tried to get me to drink it. And then he kind of turned into a swarm of flies, and he was swarming around. It was really fascinating because these flies seemed to have a kind of consciousness, a really strong consciousness.
Yeah,
and then
Beelzebub.
one of the flies... Sorry?
Beelzebub, the Lord of the Flies. That's
well, yeah, that's interesting because one of them became bigger and bigger and bigger. And I... was talking to a friend about it, and they said, yeah, Lord of the Flies. And I was like, wow, so interesting. I mean, it doesn't mean that entity was actually, you know, the Lord of the Flies, but I mean, there's certain similarities.
Well, one thing I'd like to say, and then we could move on, is that you mentioned, say, well, they're not Satanists, right? The people doing this other kind of divination and sorcery and black magic and horoscope and all this kind of stuff like that. Well, they're not Satanists, right? But the thing is, the only way we know about Satan is from the Bible. That's where we hear about Satan. Okay, that's how we know the word Satan. That's how we know the name Satan. We know who Satan is from the Bible. The Bible tells us, commands us, stay away from all the kind of divination, sorcery, all kind of stuff like that, because it's bad for us. So we can't pick and choose. But listen.
Hello?
Yeah. But like I said, I don't want to offend you, and call you demon possessed.
No. Can I just say,
yeah, sure.
I don't like, I don't do that shit. Horoscopes and all that divination and what's going to happen tomorrow. I believe that you have to live your life. I believe it. I love Jesus Christ, and I believe you have to live your life. I don't believe in that cheap shit. I was saying flower essences. I use flower essences and sometimes herbs, but no, I don't believe in all that shit. No, I don't. I don't use it. I just think it's not right. Sometimes I might toss through a few runes. I'm having a problem with an individual. I don't know how to deal with them. I might, put my hand in some runes and look at them, but that's as far as it goes. But that doesn't mean you can't explore the astral and look around and, see what's going on. I don't think that is a bad thing to explore where you are, explore the universe, right?
No, yeah, I would advise against that. Yeah.
Oh, really? You think it's okay to sit in a corner saying the Our Fathers over and over? I mean,
no,
you're
not at all,
okay
no.
with that?
No, I've not done at all. Like I said, in a Bible-believing church, right, where you have the body of Christ, and every member of the church has different gifts of the Holy Spirit. You've been baptized in the Holy Spirit. You have these different gifts of the Spirit. You're operating in the Spirit. All these things, all these for real healings, real prophecy, real words of knowledge, all these things for real, without having to dabble and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not saying sit in the corner. I'm not saying recite or repeat anything, Our Father or otherwise. It's not at all what I'm saying.
No. I'm just being facetious there a little bit,
sure.
Saying you want to live your life by just, in a church saying, Our Fathers, you don't want to explore. I think that's the way human beings have to control us. Our rulers have said we're not allowed to explore what is hidden because they want to keep us like that. They want to keep us in our boxes. They don't want us to have any power.
Well, it's true. They do say that Satan is the ruler of this earth, and a lot of these rulers, I believe, are into Satanism and all kind of blood sacrifice. And now I'm believing too, it's a Moloch worship that goes back to you look back in the Old Testament. They used to worship these Asherah poles and Moloch, and even Solomon built Asherah poles toward the end of his life. He was building Asherah poles, and then he turned away, and God turned away from Israel when he was doing that stuff too. You never hear about. Okay, and then everybody stopped worshiping Asherah poles. Everybody stopped worshiping. You never hear that. So obviously, there's this group of people that are still doing it.
Yeah,
and they do get some kind of power from it. I agree with you, but I think it's a temporary power. It's an illusion, and in the end, they lose. And they don't get eternal life, and they have to live in damnation in hell. Is my theory. But one thing too, we were talking about before too. I was telling you about the guy Captain Mark Richards. The guy who's in Vacaville prison, okay, and I was recalling because I looked up his name because I was curious. It's Captain Mark Richards, and his wife goes on these tours too with these super soldiers and stuff like that. I've met her, and everyone knows she's making this stuff up. And Mark Richards himself confessed. He confessed to these murders that now he claims that he was part of a secret space program and he was doing all this stuff like that, and he was framed and stuff. You can look it up. They have videos of his confession. Yeah, it's really. I tell you something. When I got involved in all this, I used to believe all this stuff. I thought all these people were real, and I thought all this stuff was true. I was a big fan of Carrie Cassidy. I listened to the show every Friday, and in fact, she was on this station here. And as I get to meet these people one by one, little by little, I find out that they're either lying, or crazy, and or sometimes a little bit of both, And I really found very few people in this that are sincere. I tell anybody listening to this stuff to double down your skepticism, whatever skepticism you have, double it down, because as you get to know these people, it's more and more discouraging to see what's going on. Yeah.
Do you believe my story, or you think that's a story of demon possession?
I don't think you're.
You can say what you feel.
I don't think you're making anything up. I don't think you're making anything up, because you got to remember, we talked before all this. And I was paying attention to you when you were talking to me. So I don't think you're making any of this up. But I know back 2 years ago you were very skeptical about all this stuff, and now you seem to be full blown convinced, which surprises me. I would think you would have gone the other way.
Really? Why?
Because I can't believe that you're meeting Aquino on the astral plane. Okay.
Oh, I see. You don't believe that?
No, I think it's something either in your imagination or something that's a dream, perhaps, or something like that. And by the way, too, I want you to understand, too, that before I got saved and became a Christian, I was into all this kind of stuff, this New Age stuff. I explored all these different kinds of things my whole life, all different kinds of things. And that's why I've seen both, and I'm feeling pretty good now. I'm pretty safe in what I'm doing. Yeah.
So you believe that I might have been used to spy on the IRA and to bring in phone hacking, but not that I met Aquino on the astral, or not that he abducted me.
Well, let's look at this. Let's look at this possibility. I do believe, that you were an MK Ultra child, because you have a lot of those symptoms, right? You were in the orphanages and stuff like that, sexually abused. And then you wind up in all these weird places, right? But kind of if you look around yourself right now you're kind of in a weird place. You're surrounded by a lot of weird people. And you have a history of being manipulated and pointed in different directions without your knowledge. And right now, I think you're surrounded by some of the most manipulative people I've ever met in my life. Okay? Ever met in my life.
Say that again.
Okay? That I've ever met in my life. And I've been involved in some stuff. Okay?
Dangerous
Yes.
people.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Who are we talking about, though? You're probably talking about something completely different to who I'm talking about.
I'm talking about Revolution Radio, Lori and Fenton, all these characters. Okay, you want me to say
it? I'm talking about the people that did
Mike Ringley, all these characters okay, these are some of the most bizarre, dangerous people I've ever met in my life. Definitely manipulative people. That are
not as dangerous, I suppose, as somebody that might come around to get your remittance devices and burgle you, and if you're saying you haven't got any more, they might give you a kick in. Those people are super dangerous.
I know what you mean, and I got to deal with those people too. But listen, that's the life we've chosen. You know what I'm saying? Listen, and that's work. you know what I mean? Don't you kind of disassociate that when it's work? And because I get involved all kind of criminal defense cases and stuff like that, and his witnesses threatening me and all kind of stuff, and you say, well, that's work, But then when you're dealing with these nuts on the radio and these characters and these different people, and you start getting threats and harassment from this, it doesn't seem like it's fair. You know what I mean? I'm personally insulted.
So I'm interested in that. Yeah. So you thought that I might well have had the monarch experience, but not that I'd met Aquino. But do you know that the as Russ Dizdar says on his show, and Douglas Dietrich said as well, that most of the monarch control, when they split the children, when they honeycomb their minds, etc., etc., that a lot of it is done on the astral or with the astral help. So you don't believe that side of things?
Well, if Aquino's pretty much high up there in all this kind of witchcraft and Satanism, right? So if there's anybody who I could probably say is capable of doing this kind of astral stuff, and I've heard other people claim he was astral this, astral that, okay, it would be him. So any kind of dabbling in that, it would have to come from a totally 100% evil source. And I think it would be foolish to get involved in it. I think I would go in the other direction, 100%. Now, do I think that Aquino had Max Spears killed? No.
No, I don't believe that either. Yeah. No way.
Or that anybody had him killed, I don't think. Let me ask you this, because back to your former life, because and it kind of connects to all this too. Bob Geldorf, Okay, and you know that his daughter was involved in the OTO, Crowley. Now, you had a relationship with Geldof, correct?
Oh, only just, with the news of the world and talking to him over the phone and trying to get stories out of him. That was as far as it went.
Okay, did you ever look into his life? Because I always found him to be a very curious subject. In fact, we did a show because his first song was that song, I Don't Like Mondays. That's the first big hit here in the United States about one of these school killings. And it was like the one song he did. The video for that song is very, very unusual. You could find it on YouTube. It's very bizarre. And then suddenly, on the basis of that one song, he becomes this big famous artist and starts running this big, giant charity organization. What did you ever make of that? Were you suspicious of that?
No, not at all. I didn't know he was involved in the occult thing, since people have been saying it when Peaches died. I didn't really... No, I didn't know.
Okay, really? So then what do you make of Peaches being involved in the occult? Do you think her father was or no?
I don't know. I know you mentioned it to me, and other people have. Miles Johnson says something about it, and a few people have said she was murdered. Oh, hang on, that was James Casbolt. I think I just kind of thought, oh, is that one of the sort of rumors, and let it go in one ear and out the other, really.
Yeah, it does seem to be like one of those rumors with no real substantiation. But I figured if you knew these people, maybe you could shed some light on it.
No, not really, no.
Okay. So let's think.
What are we going to talk about? So let's talk about the astral and your beliefs. So okay. You do know that when you die, your spirit is going to come out of your body and it will go actually to the astral plane, right?
Well, I do know that when I die, I'll be resurrected and absent from the body, present with the Father. I'll be in heaven with God.
You're going to go straight to heaven?
Well, that's what it says, yeah.
Okay. Well, usually, I believe, and Catholics, I know others believe, you come out of your body, you go to the astral, the mental, the causal, the different bodies. You kind of, you raise up, you don't really go shooting straight off to the highest heavens.
Yeah.
See, that's your Catholic. You're a Catholic, aren't you?
I was born Catholic.
See?
Yeah.
See?
And then when they teach you, when you die, you go to purgatory or whatever, But in the Bible, and I'm a Bible-believing Christian, it says it's, absent from the body, present with the Father. That's what I think that was Paul that said that. I was actually
present with the Father now, aren't we? Really?
Are you saying we are present with the Father?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. Absolutely, and I believe that I have, Holy Spirit living in my heart, and Jesus living in my heart. I've been baptized in the Holy Spirit. I believe that, but again, it's not like living in heaven and we're there with God. It's kind of we kind of got to put up with, and like you said, the Bible says too that the earth, Satan's the ruler of this world. And when you see these people behind the scenes. Yeah. Oh, and one thing people were asking about Jill Donis. What do you know about that? Jill Donis was investigating Savile.
Oh, you're saying her name. You're saying her name funny. Yeah. It's Jill Dando.
Oh, Dando. Okay, yeah, because I wrote it down fast when I was going by in the chat room.
I nearly didn't know who you were talking about.
Okay, Jill Dando. What do you know about that?
Not much, actually. Again, it's one of those rumors. It's just, sometimes when you read about this one into the occult, that one into, I mean, I'm sure Jimmy Savile was, but then, you look at other people and you think, well, it's kind of hard to believe, isn't it? Because most people you meet, certainly in England, they're very much about material things. They're very much, it's all materialistic stuff. So it's hard. It is hard to swallow. I mean, I suppose it's easy for me to think, well, Americans are into this, but when you look round in England, everybody seems quite one-dimensional, so it's quite hard to suck up. There's so much occultic activity on a high level, in England, for me anyway. But I suppose a lot of the listeners are going to be thinking, well, England is where it starts, and
Yeah, and even like doesn't the queen sit on like the stone of scone or something like that? She sits on her throne is on this kind of stone that comes from are you familiar with that?
I don't know. No, I'm not. No, I'm sure they are. Isn't there the different bloodlines that are very? I mean, I do quite like. I met David Icke last summer
Oh,
actually,
really?
and I do like David and his stuff. I mean, yeah, I do believe probably they're a different bloodline, and probably they are the royals up to their balls in the occult. Yeah, I can believe that, but not your average person. Not really.
What do you mean, your average person walking down the street, or the average person in government or in media? Because it seems like the whole BBC was involved in some kind of pedophilia.
Yeah, I know that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to suck up, isn't it? Because it just is. It just is, I mean, you get a lot of these Satanists around who are sort of desperate to sort of get other levels and stuff. I suppose, yeah. I suppose, yeah, there could be these Satanists. I suppose there could be, yeah. I suppose it could be.
What do you make you ever hear of a Thomas Sheridan?
Only on Facebook. Is he some kind of Irish?
Yeah. He's always fighting with people. He's an interesting guy.
Yeah,
and he
vaguely, not very much though.
You might like him. He's into all this kind of occult stuff too, as well. And he's a very fascinating guest. But he had all.
Is he?
Oh yeah. No, he's a good guest. Yeah, and you'll get a lot of traffic from him. He has a big following.
Oh, right.
And Thomas Sheridan. And the thing is, why am I mentioning his name? Half the people, he fights with so many people that a lot of the stations I'm on, they hate this guy. I can't believe I'm mentioning his name. Yeah, he has a lot. He fights with everybody. He gets along with me though, and I get along with everybody. You know me. But what do you call it? He had this theory that Jimmy Savile was the 666 killer and was a serial killer. What do you make of that? Because he was friends with that guy Sutcliffe, right?
Yes. No, I don't think he could. No, I'm not sure. It doesn't really ring true. I think a lot of those serial killers are MK Ultra, though, aren't they? A lot of them seem like experiments, especially, I mean, Bianchi is really odd, I mean, he's got all this demonic powers going on, definitely. And so if people have got that going on, you tend to think they might have been fiddled with,
Yeah, now Bianchi, he's alive or dead now?
Oh, he's alive, yeah.
Oh, really? So you're still talking to him?
Oh, God, no. No, I had a really horrible experience. I visited him in America. I was sent out there by the Guardian commission to interview him, and I spent 8 hours? 8 hours one day and 8 hours the next day. So I had a lot of time with him. And then I knew him it was over a 3-year period of corresponding, and it was towards the end of that 3 years where I almost felt like there was someone watching me in my house. And then I started to get like visions of really, really awful pornography. Sorry, now I'm going to sound really prejudiced, but it was gay male pornography, and it was just, God, now it was just stuff that I didn't want to see, basically.
Okay.
And I don't like pornography. I was brought up a strict Catholic, so I don't like any pornography. I just find it, even your lightweight stuff with a girl with her boobs out, I'm like, oh no. And I was just getting these visions of just, men's below us and all this kind of stuff, and then like really horrible violence, and I could just kind of feel him. And it was actually around that time when I did go to see a priest, and I told him this was happening, and he gave me parts out of the Bible to read. And then I spoke to a guy called Chris Berry-D, who had met with Bianchi and written about him as well. He writes lots of books about serial killers. And I rang him up because I knew him at this point quite well. And I said, Chris, did you notice anything weird when you were dealing with Bianchi? And he said, oh, you mean he can get inside your head and make you think different things? And I'm like, oh, my God. Yeah, I do mean that. And he said, yeah, he's got that ability. And it was absolutely horrible. I had to, prayer actually, got it away. And, I sure as hell backed off him. But it was through prayer that it stopped. But I wouldn't advise anyone to go anywhere near him. He is really dark. And I agreed with Chris Berry-D that with Angelo Bono, and they both went doing these killings together, that Bianchi, even though he was younger, he was just 25, he was the more dominant, and he lured in Angelo, which he did confess to that. When he confesses as this different kind of alter he's got Steve, he talks about luring in Angelo, and what he's saying is true. I think he now would have some kind of like either MK Ultra or some kind of possession, but something that he does enjoy, that he does he's like a true Satanist, I would say, Bianchi.
It's funny because when you watch these movies about it, it's interesting because they always do a movie to cover up and they give you a fake story in the movie. And the movie they did about Bianchi and Bernardo, right? They don't mention anything. Yeah, no, they don't mention anything about the kind of Satanism or anything in that. Yeah. What?
Nothing. Well, that's annoying, and it's interesting, Ed, that on the two cases that I've studied, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley, just after the case, there was some journalist that came for a book writer. I mean, in the case of Brady, it was a guy called Emlyn Williams, and these people, and in the case of Bianchi, it was Darcy O'Brien, and these writers, they come forward and they write a book and they write surmise, where they surmise what happened, and it's always very missing that sort of stuff that it should be included about what they were dabbling in. I mean, Brady was dabbling in the occult, definitely. He when he murdered children, he buried them face down and he danced on their graves and shook his hand at God, and you buried them in a semicircle, and there was so much occult activity in his killings, and the same with Bianchi. But these journalists came forward, wrote these books where they wrote surmise, and they're accepted, and then people accept their version, like Beyond Belief about Brady, and of course the films that have come out where Bono is of course the lead guy. He's this sort of communal garden rapist, murderer, that basically he's into the raping. And, Bianchi was just the sidekick, and he's played by Billy Zane. And you kind of just get the wrong end of the stick totally about what went on. It's a shame.
Yeah, it always seems like they do like a cover-up film,
Yeah, I think they do a cover-up film.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because Dennis Farina played, the other one, Bernardo, the more older one, here in the film here, and he's a former cop with a very interesting background in organized crime as well, that he admits. Yeah. Now, a couple of questions. First of all, with Bianchi, what parts of the Bible did he tell you to look at?
Oh, the priest?
No. I thought you said the serial killer told you to look at certain parts of the Bible.
Oh God, no, not him. He was coming at me, and I was getting these really horrible thoughts and visions. No, I went to a priest, and the priest told me, I think it was John.
Okay. Now, what about? Are you still in touch with Aquino?
Oh God, no. After all that pulling me out of my body, and no, God, no.
Okay.
I mean, it's when you get this kind of thing, you kind of tend to back off people like that, or you'll get it again. I mean, I'm sure you can dish it up again. No, thank you. No.
Hey, what about Tim Tate? Have you ever talked to Tim Tate?
No.
Okay. And he produced that film, Conspiracy of Silence. And he's over there in the UK. And he did an interview with me. I think he would probably do one with you.
Oh, right, cool.
Yeah. And he met Aquino, and he interviewed Aquino. Very interesting. Now, we were talking about how they do these movies, and it's a very interesting case here in the U.S. called the Jeff McDonald case. You're familiar with that, Jeffrey McDonald? That he's in prison right now. They claim he killed his wife and his kids down there in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, right? And he claims, no, it was a satanic cult that killed my family. Okay, these hippies came in, they were chanting "acid is groovy," right? And very interesting is that who was on that base when this murder took place?
No.
Colonel Aquino was stationed on that base.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they did this movie that says, no, he's guilty. He made up the stuff about these hippies doing this stuff. But there's all kinds of evidence that there was a witchcraft cult there. And there was even candle wax and all kinds of stuff, too, that they found to confirm it. Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting thing because they did one of those movies as well with that. Now, you said there was another serial killer, too, correct, that you were involved with?
Oh, no, I just studied one of them, which was Billy Hughes. I always found Hughes interesting. He was shot dead, but I tracked down his daughter. I met his daughter. But he was in prison, in Leicester Prison, for robbery, and they were transferring him from one prison to another, and he was that age. They always seem to be about 25. Brady Bianchi, all 25. Hughes was about 25. And he broke out of the prison van and he ran across this snowy kind of ground and broke into a farmhouse, and he killed the whole family apart from the wife. And then he kind of went on a journey with the wife, and the police marksman shot him eventually, and the wife got away. That's a really, really curious case. And it's really curious because, he was a thief. And then, all of a sudden he's serial killing in a house. And it makes me think that, they do get these guys in prison and they do kind of experiment on them, in the prisons.
Yeah, I did an interview with this guy who was involved, and they put him in a mental institution in Canada. And it's really, you should interview him too. Okay, I had a little problem with his publisher, so I don't bring him back on the show. But unfortunately, what went on in that mental institution up there in Canada, it was definitely a MK Ultra training ground, because they were letting these mentally insane killers from this mental institution in Canada out on leave to go live on the farm with one of the doctors. One of them went to Israel, became a Mossad agent. They worked in the Israeli army, and they came back. Oh. Yeah, this is some of the most amazing stuff I've ever seen in my life with the stuff, the stories that this guy tells. And they were doing experiments in there where they would take like 8 guys, strip them down naked, and lock them up in a box with a window and video. Oh yeah, and
wow.
And videotape what was going on there. Yeah, that's I forget the name of the show, but it's in my members section, man. That's a really intense interview. Now,
wow, it's interesting. Yeah,
there's a lot of crazy stuff going on out there. What about a topic that I cover a lot? Is the Process Church of the Final Judgment. Now, they were based in the UK. Are you familiar with them?
No, not at all. What were they up to?
Okay, really. Very interesting. The Process Church of the Final Judgment, De Grimson was the leader, and they began in the UK. They came to the United States, to New Orleans. They were a satanic cult. And as a matter of fact, when they came to New Orleans and incorporated, they used the same lawyer who incorporated this Catholic church that had all these people from the JFK assassination involved in it. Okay, but when you look into this group, this Process Church of the Final Judgment, they later on moved to New York, and they were involved in the Son of Sam murders and other ritual abuses, sacrificing dogs in Undermeyer Park. In Yonkers there, and Undermeyer Park's an interesting park as well too, because all the stones from there's all kind of occult stuff going on there in that park, and all the stones were imported from England, from the UK.
Oh,
yeah, and now this group, and they were involved. They were in Georgia during the Atlanta child killings. There were all kinds of connections to Charles Manson. And the Manson murders and all kinds of really creepy stuff, man. The Arliss Perry killing in California. So, they seem to be involved in a lot of historical stuff here in the United States. And they're still alive and around today. The original top leadership now live in Utah, where they run an animal shelter called Best Friends for Animals. And they have like a $40 million a year budget with this animal shelter up there. It's really some really bizarre stuff with this. That's another thing you might want to take a look into, since you got an interest in all this kind of stuff.
Sort of. Not really.
No?
Kind of. Not really. No, I haven't actually. No, not the people that do that kind of thing. More into like other worlds and the Anunnaki and the fallen angels and that kind of thing. I like to explore that to find out what's going on and why our world has evil in it, and not those arseholes. No, I think they're on. No, I think they're, even Aquino, he's reached a really high level of what he's up to, but they're just praising entities, aren't they? I mean, even coetting what he does, and he seems a nice guy. I don't know why he's doing it. He's calling on the Goetia demons and Azazel and getting favors and this kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know why they do that. I am interested in, conversing with one of them myself and asking them, what really went on with the fall and stuff like that. But no, I find those low-life people just very dull. It's the same old shit, isn't it, really? They're really kind of confused, I think.
Well, you look at a guy like Aquino. This guy became a general, he was head of the NSA. This guy was really powerful politically,
Yeah.
to incredible lengths. So, I don't know, man. See, he was part of the Phoenix program in Vietnam, when they did all kind of horrible stuff down there too. Who's this guy quitting?
Yeah, they played music, didn't they, to the...
Yeah, well, a lot more than that. I just had Doug Valentine on the show, who did the authoritative book on the Phoenix program, because he actually hung out with Colby, who told him all the stuff that went on there, who was the founder of that program. And met all these different CIA agents and stuff like that. Yeah, he's running around too, trying to do interviews, because he has a new book out called "The CIA is Organized Crime." And I've heard Doug. Yeah,
well, he sounds interesting.
He's good. The only problem with him is you have to tape with him, because he's deaf, so he has to read your lips on Skype, and he doesn't like to do it live. He likes to do it on tape. But he is very interesting. Now, you got that stuff about Aquino playing music from Douglas Dietrich, right?
No, I just read it somewhere.
Yeah, because I didn't get any of that. What I got from the Phoenix program is what they were doing. They were extortionists, really, and what they could do is the local businessmen. All you had to do was accuse somebody and say, "Yeah, those guys are Viet Cong," and then they would go in there and kidnap them and torture them and stuff like that. So they could extort people and say, "Hey, man, if you don't start paying us off and giving us part of your drug business and giving us part of this and part of that, we're going to say that you're Viet Cong," and then you get kidnapped the next day and tortured. So it was pretty much like a shakedown operation was going on over there. Yeah. Who's this guy Quetting you were telling me about?
He is somebody that there was Vice was doing something on Miles Johnson. Well, I introduced Vice to Miles Johnson, and they wanted to film me doing a radio show about Max Spears' death. So
right.
I think I'd found Coetting online. He is a black magician. I think he's supposed to be quite good at it. And I listened to him one day talking to someone else about how he had traveled astrally and came across an entity sitting on a throne made of serpents with glowing eyes made up of liquid fire. I could just kind of see it in my mind's eye myself. And I thought, he's telling the truth. So I became quite interested in him. He seems, I think, from what I researched him, I think pretty much that he's probably a monarch, because he went through a really, really abusive childhood. And then he kind of, found the occult. I don't know what he would be used for, but sometimes they just tie people up because they are powerful spiritually. I think he came from a bloodline of quite powerful, spiritually powerful people. But he now seems to just run this organization, Become a Living God, where they encourage people to basically, I think it's to talk to demons. I might have that wrong. I don't want to get on his wrong side. But, that was... he just seems to me as if he's going in the wrong direction in life. I did say that to him, but, And
who's Miles Johnson?
Oh, Miles Johnson, he gathers all these people. He's got an organization called Bases, and he gathered James Casbolt and gathered Max. I think they become quite well known only because of Bases, really, because, he pretty much puts them out there and, they get a lot of views, and next thing they're quite well known and they go to the Super Soldier Summits and stuff. So he kicks off a lot of this, really.
And what's his background? What do you think?
Well, he worked for the BBC, and then he sort of got interested in UFOs, and now he's interested in this. He's okay. I talk to him now and again. He does believe a lot of stuff that I sort of don't really. He would believe in people going to Mars and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, if he's selling it, I'm sure he wants to believe it. Now, what about do you do any of these seminars? Have you done any of those?
Seminars?
Yeah, like the Basis thing, like that, and go out and do appearances.
No, I was supposed to go along, and this Vice organization was supposed to. They're like, I don't know. They're on Sky now. They film company. They were going to film me there, but I decided not to. It was weird. I had really weird dreams about it the night before, and because of the dreams I didn't go. It was like, I just kind of, when I get loads of like input like that, then I tend to back off things,
Yeah, okay.
I didn't go.
Now, Max Spears, why do you think he gets so much press right now after his death?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I did know The Sun, so I put it with The Sun. I was trying to get money for his mother to do a headstone. In the end, even though I put the story with The Sun, they didn't pay either me or her. It was out of order. They said, the editor said, "Oh, I got it through. We found the story offline," which they didn't find the story offline. So I then had to go to the union and get them to pay the mother. It was only £750, but that was towards headstone. And I think the Mail picked it up from The Sun. So that might have been my fault, actually.
So, so you think you're the origination of this story getting so much press in mainstream UK media?
Yeah, but that's because I've worked in the mainstream media for years and years and years. So I've got really good contacts. So if I ring them with a story, an unknown ringing them with a story,
Sure, I know exactly, sure. So now all these people here in the U.S. that are saying, well, there must be something to this because, look, it's covered in the mainstream media in the UK. What would you say to them?
Oh, well, they picked up on it. I mean, he was really good looking. So, had he been an ugly chump, I don't think that the tabloids would have gone for it as strong as they did. And, of course, the broadsheets, then they picked up on it as well. So Well, it was a kind of sinister thing. He went out to meet with Stuart Sverdlow's people, and, next thing he winds up dead. I mean, it was a bit kind of weird. And then, of course, Vanessa was sent that ritualistic murder book, and he had that thing carved on his head, that kind of occult symbol. So it was like something dodgy had gone on.
Okay, I'm not familiar with any of that. Vanessa's the mother?
Yeah.
Now, she was sent a book after his death by who?
Yeah, Monica, who was there when he passed away or was murdered, she sent him that book. She sent the mother the book about ritual murder, yeah.
In order to send her a signal saying, hey, your son was ritually murdered?
I don't know. I don't know why. I mean, that's why I had Coetting on the show, to ask his opinion. I mean, it might have been gloating to her. It was quite a nasty book, she said. And then seemingly had this carving on his third eye of a like a doorway with a little man kind of thing.
Really? And you saw that?
Yeah. Well, she sent me a picture of it, so yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
Okay, and it looks like a little carving of a door on his head?
It looks like a little man with a box round it, and according to Coetting, that is to either put an entity inside, and he said that's maybe what the vomiting of the black liquid is. Well, these demonic kind of creatures, like the one I saw in the astral, they do seem to have a thing with that black liquid, black goo, as Miles calls it. Some people call it artificial intelligence, that black stuff. So anyway, he seemed to vomit it up, and according to Coetting, that was when they put the entity inside him through the door of his third eye. I don't know if that's true or not, but
yeah, Coetting wasn't there, right?
No, he wasn't there.
Okay.
But Monica did ring me on the Sunday just after he died and said he vomited up black fluid and it was all over my bedroom. There was loads of it.
So Monica's the one that mailed the book?
Yeah.
And she's the only one that saw this black goo? Did she save any of it? Did she take a sample of it? If it's on the bed, did she save the sheets?
I don't know, actually. She kind of disappeared.
Okay, so okay. His mother was actually on my station. One of my former hosts interviewed her. He didn't really ask any good questions. He did most of the talking. I think he talked more than she did. Now, what about this stuff about that he sent his mother a text message saying, investigate my murder? Has anybody seen those texts?
No, I haven't seen the text, no.
Has anybody seen them?
I don't know. Presumably Vanessa has seen them.
Yeah, the mother, right, who received them and reports seeing it. Yeah. And has she just preserved her phone, as evidence or anything like that? Is anybody investigating this?
I don't know. Oddly, I had Skype, because I'd been doing these radio chats with him, and I on my Skype, when you text someone and it stays there, he had said just the day before he was murdered, or maybe the day before he was murdered, that he believed that Aquino was attacking him astrally. And of course, I challenged that, and I got very attacked by people as well on Facebook, because I said I questioned it. But I had obviously had this experience with Aquino, and then when Max was saying he had it, I just wondered why, because I believed that you have to knock on Aquino's door to get a bit of notice. I mean, he's an old guy. I don't think he's plugged in to everyone. I went and banged his door with an email. Max hadn't done that, but people say, well, he was slagging him off. But, Aquino probably gets, thousands of people slagging him off. But he sent me this communication saying that he believed it was Aquino attacking him and he was getting really bad headaches. So I said, are you sure? And he said, yeah, I'm sure, because the three sages were with him. and I didn't know what that meant. But those texts he sent me, they've disappeared for some bizarre reason.
Does it say deleted messages? Message deleted?
It just has a note. I had a big history of texts from him, like loads and loads, and
Right.
they've all gone. It's weird because it came up one day, his birthday, like with a cake,
Yeah.
and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I went to scroll back over his texts, and they'd all gone. I mean, it's weird because with other people, I can look back over their texts, and it's all there, but his is gone. I just thought that was kind of strange.
You got to look it up, but there's a thing you could do on Skype where you hit like F10 or something like that, and then a little search box will come up. If you Google it, say, how do I search on Skype? There's a little thing you can do, and the search box will come up, and if you put any of those keywords in there, like migraine or headache or keno, it should come back, and you should be able to find it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Now, do we know has there been an autopsy, cause of death? Do we know anything about that?
No, well, there's going to be an inquest in February in Colchester, which I might go along with Vanessa to that if she wants someone to go along.
And when will that be?
February.
Oh, in February, coming right up. And there's an inquest in the UK there.
Yeah.
Because his mother was from the UK.
Oh, yeah, they're English, aren't they?
Well, he was. Now, what does his mother say about him being involved in this orphanage in Canada and all this kind of stuff that he talks about with these 43 kids?
Oh, no, that's Casbolt, isn't it?
Yeah, but what's his name? Spears said he remembers Casbolt, and they remember each other, and that they were born 6 days apart, and they both wound up in Texas together, and all this kind of stuff. That somehow they have some kind of connection with each other.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah.
It's strange, isn't it?
Yeah, so now what does the mother say about that?
I didn't ask her, actually.
No one asked her. How could nobody ask the mother? You got it right there. It's amazing. I guess you don't want to hurt her feelings,
I mean, I just didn't think of it. But I heard Casbolt saying that he accused Max of copying him. He said he just copies me and follows me around, and he likes me, and he says he used to know me. So I thought, well, I just didn't.
Well, it is kind of true that if you look at the first video with the Kerry Cassidy did in that hotel room. By the way, too, I know that hotel very well. And Kerry Cassidy had a really expensive room in that hotel. She had a suite, man. She had a really one of the best rooms in that hotel. But when you look at that, and they're both sitting on the couch, she asked him a question, and Max does look over at Casbolt. Casbolt says, yeah, and then Max agrees with him. And almost over and over. It's like he definitely takes the lead. Yeah. Very interesting stuff with these guys. I got to tell you, these super soldiers. Any other super soldier? What about this guy, the big guy with the Irish name, O'Leary, something like that, or Donovan O'Finnigan?
Oh, that guy. Oh my God. There's an American guy, and he was on. Gosh, I can't remember his name now, but he was on. He talks like they was so.
Duncan O'Finnigan, right?
Say that again. Duncan
O'Finnigan.
Yes, that's him. And he was on a radio show, and somebody brought me up, and he went, Christine Hart, oh, that one. She says she infiltrated the real IRA. Well, I'll tell you this. She don't know the real IRA, because I know the real IRA, and that leader of the real IRA is called Sticks. And Sticks don't know her, and none of them have heard her, and she is a lawn skank. Oh, God. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry when I heard it.
Yeah, he was on that show with Jesse Ventura. Jesse Ventura had him on. And I tell you, man, out of all these super soldiers, are there anyone that you found that you can actually verify anything they've ever said or any of their information?
I don't know, but I suppose listening to Casbolt, I did. He did trigger stuff in me. He did trigger. I was watching him one time, and I kind of went to sleep after I had heard him, and I felt a kind of pressure on my forehead. And I remembered it was kind of like I was in a boxing ring, and I was fighting somebody, and they kind of dragged me back to a dining table, and I was with a man. He kept saying to me, "Are you all right?" And I'm like, I wasn't this man, I was me. So I was looking at him, and he said, "Be careful or you'll get in trouble over there." And turned out I was in Treblinka, and I was a Nazi, and they used me for like boxing and stuff like that. So I had this memory of this previous life after listening to him. And it was odd that even now when I get a letter from him, it does kind of trigger weird kind of occultic stuff, so I do find James quite interesting. I don't think he's total made up,
Yeah. Okay, so that he might have some kind of a background in some kind of psychological operations or something like that. But what about, how did he make a living? How did he support himself?
I don't know.
Yeah,
is that weird. There is a weird show that Miles did of him down in Cornwall, and he's pointing out to sea and saying there's a Stargate there and this, and he looks quite old actually in that. And then he goes back to a sort of seems like a room, and it looks quite poor. Everything looks quite poor. I don't think he worked really. I think he might have signed on the dole.
Yeah, and he lived in the UK too?
Yeah.
Okay. And what was the circumstances that this guy Miles Johnson is the one who called the cops on him and turned him in for confessing to murders? And how did what would motivate Miles Johnson? He has this guy who was an attraction, he sells them, right? And to make money. And what would motivate him to turn him into the cops and saying this guy comes to my events and says he commits murders?
I know, it's weird he did that, isn't it? It's a bit mean.
Well, have you asked him, Miles Johnson?
Oh, he just said, well, if he's dangerous and he's hurting people, blah-de-blah, I'm going to grass him up. I don't think he used the words grass, but, I'm going to report to the cops. But I thought it was a bit harsh. I know there's other people that think it's a bit harsh, too.
Yeah, he did seem to be a loose cannon. And I tell you, he confessed to shooting cops in Mexico. If the cops want to contact me, I'll send you a text. Oh,
He's got something about him, though. I don't think... he's got something. There's something that went on. I feel, anyway.
We're out of time. Christine, I thought we had a couple minutes more. Christine, Joanna Hart, thank you so much. Check her out on Revolution Radio on Thursday nights, 7 p.m.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon, Christine. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Take care. Bye.
God bless you. Okay, there you have Christine Joanna Hart, who was really worked in the UK as a journalist and was involved as a private investigator and was involved in some really big stuff with this UK phone hacking stuff, which was a huge scandal in the UK. That brought down Murdoch, brought down News of the World. They were tapping into voicemails of Princess Diana and stuff like that. This was huge, huge stuff. And I got to tell you something, too. It's kind of an interesting backstory. Is at the time, I knew how to do it, too. Okay? I knew how to hack into people's voicemails as well around that time while all this was going on. But I didn't do it because I was such a good Christian at the time as well, too. I didn't want to do anything illegal, break any rules. And there was times when I could have made a lot of money. But I didn't do it. But I knew how to do it because it was involving voicemails and caller ID spoofing to get into people's voicemails and listen to their voicemail messages. And not too many people knew how to do it. Interesting little tidbit with that whole thing is because just by one of these wild coincidences, because you guys know that I was in the beeper business, I was in the cell phone business. We also used to sell calling cards. And we had all that kind of services, voicemail services we used to sell in my business in New York. And I knew the guy who was one of these guys with the first caller ID spoofing card businesses. Okay, he was a friend of mine because they had this thing in New York where they had this really, I forget what they called it, but there was this hub in Manhattan where they had the best telecommunications and these fiber optics and stuff like that way back in the early 90s. And it was very exclusive. And what happened is some of the first people who figured out how to do this, to break into people's voicemails, was Lindsay Lohan and Paris Hilton. Now, you can Google this and still find it, okay? And they had figured out how to do this, and they were hacking into each other's voicemails to listen to each other's messages. And they were doing this 3,000 times a day. They were checking over and over and over. And it was so bad that these two wacky teen stars here were hacking into each other's voicemails so much that the company refused to let them use the service anymore, because it wasn't designed for that. It was just designed for caller ID spoofing. But people figured out that if you called someone's phone with their own phone number and the voicemail picked up, you could hit 1 and listen to the messages, or 2 to record new messages and stuff like that. So that's kind of a little behind the scenes story there. Did a show with Christine Hart in the members section where we talk about a lot of this stuff. I would advise people to go back and check that show out, because she was very cautious about all this stuff, about the dreams and the astral projection, all that kind of stuff, and these things. We're very cautious about it then, 2 years ago. And to hear now that she's just so convinced by it all, I thought maybe she had gone the other way. And again, too, I've talked on the air about my experiences with Max Spears and his girlfriend, Sarah, and this guy, Casball, Prince, whatever his name is, and has not been a good one. I don't find him to be credible at all, even the slightest bit. Not even the slightest bit. And even Spears himself was very sheepish around me after I just asked him some very basic questions. You know me, very basic. Well, what's your name? How old are you? Where do you live? What do you do for a living? And this wasn't an interview. This was in person, shaking hands, getting along with each other. And he's telling me he's got this background in black ops and all this kind of stuff. I said, well, what'd you do? Where'd you work? Who do you know? And very sheepish about the whole thing. He couldn't keep a straight face and keep up his game there. Anyway, coming up after this, we got William Ramsey has a brand new show. I forget what it is. Coming up, what is this guy? He interviewed someone named Ken Ami about transhumanism, for people that are into that. And then after that, we have our newest star on the network. What's his name? Doug Campbell, a really cool guy. And he's interviewing Ted Rubenstein. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have both those shows on Spreaker for you, okay? And maybe I'll just make them as one episode, so I don't have to sit here and look at it all day. So anyway, guys, I'll see you next week. And there's some new stuff coming into the members section, so don't worry, don't complain. Talk to you soon. Good night, all.